Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Today's guest is someone who's played a big role in my life, even though we've only interacted very few times. And I think he's played a big role in a lot of people's growing up and the way they view the world. So Walter, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
All right. So for the uninitiated, people who are unfamiliar with your body of work, who are you and what do you do?
I'm Walter Schreifels. I'm a musician. I live here in New York and have been writing songs, playing in bands, and I do production work and all kinds of stuff related to music.
Okay. So we're going to unpack a whole bunch of stuff because you're someone that I view as being like an incredible songwriter, amazing musician. I look at your musical career as someone who's very comfortable with bringing different things to the table and disrupting. But disrupting in like a cool way, not an obnoxious. And maybe you'll unpack that for me more. Let's focus on songwriting. And you know, when you were doing the pre-work with Spencer, the pre-interview, you used a quote which is, "Boldness can be praised if it works."
Yeah, I mean, I think if you, I heard like a Bowie quote recently that I thought was really good. It's along the lines of like when you are, when you push yourself to where you're in a zone that you're uncomfortable, that's when you kind of create the opportunities to do something really special, you know? And I think that sort of like tentativeness, I think, is where really unique and special things happen. You know, if you kind of trust your sensibility and taste and maybe try to like jump ahead a little bit from what people are doing, then people will respond. Although if there's so many ways it could go wrong, you know, like even though if the artistic idea is on point, it might not be appreciated until some later date. But yeah, I think it just with my work, I've always wanted to incorporate all my interests into these different things. There's like a lot of them trying to jam into it, and always want to be like a little bit projecting futuristically for me.
When did that become intentional though? And to back it up, if we think of, and correct me if I'm wrong, your first band that you really ever recorded with was Gorilla Biscuits, right?
Yeah, I think with the Gorilla Biscuits, it was more just there were so many. The Gorilla Biscuits was the first band I did as this hardcore punk band, and there was a really amazing scene in New York City at that time with so many other good bands. So you really had a close proximity to other people that were doing inspiring stuff. So I think that the instinct to push forward was based on like that I had really lots of great competition to like try to like grab from and try to anticipate ahead of it. I wouldn't say it was like super conscious. I was really just trying to do my best within a realm of like a lot of people that I respected and admired.
Totally. So you came up in the scene, which is like, again, so you know, like people come to the podcast from all sorts of different backgrounds because this is a business podcast.
Yeah.
But we got a ton of people from punk and hardcore who are like, I know this guy's story and they're psyched, but there's going to be business people listening to this. To give everyone a little background, like when Walter talks about the scene that he came up in, it's like legendary punk hardcore scene, New York, full of like characters that are beyond your imagination.
Yeah.
In that space, what you were doing, it was just natural though. It wasn't like planned out, right?
Well, I mean, just as much as you were just enthusiastic, I mean, in any sort of business context, you know, there's like waves of businesses, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, there's this new drink. It's called soda. You know what I mean?
That's your like old timey voice.
Yeah, what I mean? Like, and so there's like Coca-Cola. Oh, that's great. And so someone will make it one that's like it. And then someone will say, mine is orange. I'm calling it orange. You know what I mean? And then that group of people that kind of solidify within that pack of people, maybe become the iconic members of that group. But there's a moment when there's an idea kind of comes together, and I think it often happens in clusters of people that are either like, you know, obviously are sharing. I mean, in my case, it was like just people my age living in New York City having an interest in this like really kind of strange, crappy music. And so it really brought an interesting clique of people together that rubbed up off of each other and like challenged each other and inspired and all that kind of stuff. So I think, you know, as it applies to a sort of, you know, it was not a business thing at that time, but I think there's a lot of businesses that don't necessarily intend for, they don't lead with the business thing. It's like when it becomes a business that they like, oh crap, we're making money. Now we've got to do it differently.
Dude, totally. And this is like why I was so interested in us having this conversation. What you did led you to become a professional musician and working within music professionally. But it wasn't what like you set out to do. You were just some kid who was hanging out with his friends, right?
Yeah. I mean, the music that I was putting my energy into was like very similar to like kids putting energy into skateboarding. It wasn't like, of course you wanted to do well within the people that were like in your little circle, but it wasn't like you're looking at, making it in that kind of way. There wasn't really anybody to point to for the kind of music that I was making that would be like, yeah, I'm going to do it like that. So yeah, that kind of just evolved into something where, it was growing and then, I wasn't quick to necessarily maximize those things, those opportunities that were kind of opening. But we were very, I think, sharp in knowing our audience, and having a very shared sensibility with them, and like what would go well and what would like not go well. And that's like, the kind of messages in your songs, the kind of how they're structured, but on a business sense, like the like what kind of t-shirts do you put out? Like what kind of, what's the price? Who do you associate with? What values are you projecting? These are things I think businesses are thinking about a lot these days. And I would even draw the line to not like myself, but to like people like myself, or that you're doing a business podcast, people like you as well, that learned a lot of these ways of running an organization, a business, and how you stay attuned to your audience and understand, your audience, your consumer, blah, 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 blah. Same thing. You learn how to manage all these different components within an organization, and how to work with people. And you make a lot of shortcuts in that kind of DIY realm. Because you realize you don't need permission for a lot of things. You can just kind of bootstrap a lot of things.
Well, I love that idea of not asking for permission. Like for me, the most liberating idea of punk and hardcore is like, oh, like you can just go and do this thing.
Yeah.
Like if we think of Discord, it's like, oh, records, we want to do that. Like, oh, let's just do it, and not relying on a pre-existing system, but also you're not like fighting against the system. You're just choosing to not interact with it, but yet do the same thing in your own little microcosm.
Yeah, because I think there's certain industries that are like, yeah, they're very set in their ways. They've existed for a time, and they kind of get their system works for them. But when obviously the record industry, the music industry is constantly in flux, and people are really like always trying to figure out a new way to like make that connection between the artist and the audience. I think in a nice way, it's kind of shifted more towards like, let's make sure let's take care of the artist first, because the artist isn't getting paid, then we got nothing.
Yeah.
I think that was true with the initial hardcore kind of thing, and hardcore music is the kind of music that I was making, but it was very much like, it was still like a more of a commune kind of idea. I think where there's the guy that's putting out the records, the guy that's making the t-shirts, the guy that's playing the bass, the guy that's like dancing in the audience, the guy that's like booking the shows or whatever, that all these different components were like part of the same machine in a way.
So in your bands, you kind of unintentionally took on the leadership role. It wasn't like, I'm going to be like the band dad or be this person. You just kind of fell into it. How did that happen?
I think, absolutely, was not like trying to be like, I'm leading this thing, man. You know what I mean? I mean, I have been sort of in that role, but I mean, just because I got it, I figured out how to write songs, and like I got interested in it, and then because I was doing that just like, that's the sort of the, I'm just gonna say it in business speak, but like that's what we're selling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like that's the major point of it. You know what I mean? Obviously, like we're selling t-shirts, we're selling when we're playing live, we're getting paid for that. And there's just each one of those kind of realms is selling the records, like where are they distributed, who's getting it, it's getting a proper amount of coverage in that time it would have been fanzines, but like media coverage, et cetera, who's responsible for that. So it fans out, but it starts with the songs. And because I was writing the songs and organizing that part of it, for the most part, I ended up, not in all ways. I mean, I was very happy to take back seats when it wasn't my department, but in the ways that I was leading, that was where it was coming from.
So at what point did you become conscious of like, oh, actually, I want to like take a leap creatively, or I want to get uncomfortable? So for example, Gorilla Biscuits demo to the EP, there's a pretty clear line of how that progressed. The LP came out, and I remember as a kid getting it and being like, well, this is Gorilla Biscuits, but this is a much bigger thing. It's like getting a comic book and then getting a novel. It's just cool. Like a different thing, but it kept that through line. Was that a conscious decision to really up your game as a songwriter and to do what the band could do, or did it just kind of happen?
I mean, yeah, definitely wanted to make it great, and I think it was timed nicely to where like the whole band, we were just like, our identity was getting more solid. We were gaining more confidence. I was getting more confidence about what I was doing, and our energy was really good to where like anything that we did within the group of the five of us at that time was like any idea was going to get bounced around or made fun of in a good way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So where you have like a good team. So like it allows people to feel supported, and I felt like I was a great songwriter because those guys were treating me that way.
Yeah.
And so that it sort of becomes more real in that way. And if you wanted to do something like, I never felt that our band, because I was cramming all these different influences into it, you have some of the major bands in our realm. Like, I didn't think we were measured up on a lot of different things, but we did well at being us. And I think that that's really what you have to offer the world, is like, be really good at being who you are.
Yeah, that's tough though. And so I want to break that into two things, because I do want to push on the idea of like innovating. And again, when I say the demo to the 7-inch, it was a clear progression. When I call it a comic book, I mean a cool comic book where you're like, I'm into that.
Yeah.
The difference between those two and the LP is significant. It's a bigger thing. And it felt like someone really put their hands on the wheel and was like, nah, I'm going to kind of drive this thing. It had that feel to it. What's the trust involved with getting people to be like, okay, we're just going to go with you. You got the bigger idea. Like, how do you get that kind of trust with people? And was there ever any like pushback from people in the band saying like, geez, are we going to put a harmonica on this? That sounds like wild.
Not really. There was never a hard thing. I think I just was, after, going from our demo, which was really me like trying to figure out this whole thing that I was new to this kind of music and new to being in a band and all that kind of stuff. And just being like, parts of it were good, to this like 7-inch, you said, our first comic, and it's a solid comic book.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, now we've got an audience, now we can play for an audience. The audience is going to respond. So you're learning from, what would be a business. I'm just going to keep calling it your audience, like the people that care about your thing, that when they're coming back to you, even if it's like all positive, you're still soaking up that energy of like why it's good, what's working within it. And so going at the album, I was better, more confident, and as that playing that role within the band, the other guys were supportive, because I was always like, I also understood, like, as I was writing things, like I understood what my bandmates would do, because they're all have a personality as performers themselves, as artists themselves, and so like I know that this is gonna work because I just know how well this person is at that. And so it's going to lift my idea to another place. And then if you say, let's put a harmonica, it makes perfect sense. And if it was dumb or didn't work, we wouldn't have left it on. I mean, there's probably some ideas that we tried that were just like too, I don't remember what they were, but it was like we were actively searching for things to sort of make it a little bit crazier, because I think with that album, and it's not like a general business thing, it's more of like an actual talking about a record. It's like, you have this sort of expectation based on the thing itself, you know, like you said, what you've heard up till that time. So you have a basic projection in your mind of what the next thing is going to be. And then how that fits into the larger context of like other bands or other groups of people trying to do the same thing. And fucking with that as much as you can while still delivering the core thing. So it's like the songs had all the things that you would want, but like wherever there was an opportunity to do something sort of ridiculous or you know, make a squiggly line here or something like that to show that that we have that confidence. Like we're not worried that if we put a harmonic on this record that people are gonna be like, oh man, that's so uncool, it's so lame. Like if you're gonna have that reaction to it, then it's like that's just you're a little uptight. And I think it's like you're probably gonna loosen up eventually, totally. Or maybe never, and that's fine too. But if that's the point of departure, like okay, good, we can live with that. It's harmonica for you, and good luck with your thing. But doing those kind of things within that context. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think that's why people love artists is like when you have that idea of what's coming next and they play with that expectation while still delivering something that is like, you know, authentic to their journey, you know.
Dude, this is exactly. And so when I think of businesses, I just did an interview a couple of weeks ago for this business blog, and they said, what advice would you have for any small business? Someone starting something. And I was like, don't pay any attention to your competitors at all. So when I started my company, I literally had no idea who my competitors were. I knew one company, which is the company I'd been at before. And I had this like burning desire to do something way cooler than them. But I didn't like keep up with what they were doing. Nor did I ever research what other people were doing. And when I was asked why, I was like, because I'm not trying to be derivative of someone else. I'm not trying to do like like us too, like our company has this. I was like, that's fine. I want to be totally standalone. I want to be completely unique. In doing that, though, you've got to be able to like, you got to have the goods. So you can be yourself and totally suck, and your band could suck, your business could suck. But if you've got that thing, then you should be able to pull it off. Going back to Gorilla Biscuits, and I'm going to step into Moondog and then Quicksand from there. Gorilla Biscuits 100% is like a unique band. And I'd say there's never been another Gorilla Biscuits. Youth of Today, which is, of course, one of my all-time favorite bands, or like a band like Minor Threat. There's never been another band like them, but you could see people being like iterations of those bands or derivative of those bands. I can't think of a band that's really like derivative of Gorilla Biscuits in a way that's like really close. Kind of like Dag Nasty. I don't think there's ever been someone who's super close to Dag Nasty. Being that unique means you've got a legacy and something that lasts. But is there any negative side to that? Did people ever react negatively to Gorilla Biscuits being so unique, so different than their peers?
I think probably if you look at fanzines at the time, you know, you probably find some people that are salty about one thing or another. But I think over time, like, you know, and the audience, for people that don't know about hardcore, it's a real salty audience to begin with. There's a lot of salt in it, just from it's one of the main ingredients. Totally. So you know that's just gonna happen. But again, it was like just like what the rationale was for it was. You know, I could have had some concerns like, oh damn it, you know, being hard like in hardcore is like kind of part of the thing, and it's like we're not really like hard, you know what I mean? Like because our lyrics are all just uplifting, and I just was confident about what we were doing. I thought we had made like a really, you know, I was really happy with pretty much every aspect of it. And I think it just had a lot of joy in it, and it was unique to us. And you know, just the name, the whole thing, it's just kind of like has that. It was just something cool. So I appreciated it as it was happening, and like I thought we had made a great album. And so there was, maybe some reviews like, oh, this is blah, 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 or that's this, I don't like this, the aspect of it. And, you know, that may or may have not annoyed me at the time, but I was very confident that we had made something, you know, we had made a great album. I thought for sure.
So Gorilla Biscuits, it's like your first space of really being like, oh, I'm actually like a songwriter. I can do this thing. and I'm going to be unique. I'm going to be myself. I'm going to be innovative.
Mm-hmm.
And when I said right at the beginning of the interview, I view you as a disruptor because I think you're someone, not think, I firmly believe you're someone who's like, oh, I'm going to take a leap and try something new. And then people follow. I heard someone said just the other day, a great business leader was like, oh, disruption is when you do something that's not easily imitatable and everyone spends years trying to copy that. And finally someone gets it down the line, but you're already on to the next thing.
Yes.
That is exactly how I viewed your musical career.
Yeah.
So hitting with Gorilla Biscuits, you get to this kind of like peak.
Yeah.
And then the next thing that happens is Moondog into Quicksand.
Yeah.
What caused that shift?
I think some of it's like kind of unique to the kind of scene we're in. There wasn't really a lot of like long career arcs in our scene. And I think it was also corresponding with like me getting good at or gaining confidence in like songwriting, although I still didn't necessarily see myself as a songwriter. I wanted to create things that would happen. And so, you know, I had I wanted to sing because I was working with Siv from Gorilla Biscuits, like on singing, like me and Don Fury, we were like, and Siv, we'd all work together on the vocals and like really get into it. And that was a really, really fun process. But I felt like, why don't I just sing and do it the way that I want to do and see what it sounds like? And no one knows what I sing like. So if it's bad, no one will care. And if it's good, it'll be surprising. And I want to hear it anyway. And I surely was not wanting to, I think at that time that like once there is a sort of understanding of how a thing is done. And I think like we were talking about Youth Today, for example, I think Youth Today is really, really a great thing because for many different reasons. One of it is like sort of like Black Sabbath, like you can pick the cues and take the parts. And that's what I did. You know, being in Youth Today, I was definitely like stealing parts, you know, for what I was doing with Gorilla Biscuits because it's that kind of a thing. So, but at a certain stage, like too many people had the blueprints, and it was just sort of like it wasn't interesting me anymore. I didn't feel that peer group that I felt maybe a couple years before, like that were like, and what you said I think is very true. Like, don't try to like pay too much attention to your peers, but if your peers are inspiring you and are egging you to compete, you know, in a way, and maybe that's a bad way to put it, like, but it's more like someone says something funny or interesting, you know, that inspires you to maybe like get into that conversation, you know what I mean? And it felt a little flat. So I just wanted to like throw different ingredients in and things that were like maybe less more discordant and like and just like a little change to the formula, like little changes to the formula was enough to do something sort of drastic to where the feedback was again really good. And I think it was a mixture of that sort of like, oh, I don't like this, but you just knew that it was the people that were like bugging on it were going to be the louder voice.
Yeah. I want to hit on two things you said. Do you mind if we talk about competition for a second?
Sure.
So if you're playing a show and you're headlining and the band before you crushes it, they're awesome. What do you want to go in and be like, okay, we'll just phone it in, or does that make you go harder?
Damn. I mean, you don't want to look thirsty, you know, trying to like chase anybody. And I think I'm past the point of like, if someone's really, really good, yeah, I'm inspired by that. Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't think it's bad to be competitive in if you care about what you're doing, because like it's not competitive to beat them or take something from them. It's to move it forward and to reinterpret, because everybody's like, people are reinterpreting. I mean, I'm not like I don't want to be big headed about it anyway, but there are some people that are reinterpreting what I do. Totally. But they should know that I'm just reinterpreting what someone else did. And like, I'm failing at like ripping them off by creating this other thing that just sounds slightly wrong. Yeah. You know what I mean? And some of that's really obvious, you know what I mean, at times, you know, and and I'm not like ashamed of that. It's
No.
just the way that it is. It's like we're always imprinting. You're born, you're this little blob. Someone tells you you're a person. You're imprinting off your parents. You're imprinting off of your siblings or whatever. It's just like that's what life is, you know.
Someone that I learned, one of the people that I learned the most about about songwriting from was Todd Jones. And Todd Jones, one day I was like, "Damn, I'm having a really hard time coming up with something," and he was like, "Oh," then just sent me a song, and he's like, "Play this riff backwards." And I was like, "Can I do that?" He was like, "Oh, that's like every single song I start with taking a riff that I like and twisting it or moving it in some way." And it was kind of like someone gave me the keys where it was like, yeah, like, you know, great things come from like not being derivative, but like iteration and creating new things and bringing all the different influences. It was one of the most, he'd probably laugh if he heard this. They might be like, "Don't tell people my secret." But like, that's what, it was a game changer thing for me, rather than sitting in my bedroom and like pounding my guitar away and just feeling like this sucks. Be like, oh, go with something that's inspiring. Just don't be derivative of it. Going back to competition, listen, I am a firm believer that there's toxic competition where it's just like shitty. You're jealous, you're angry, you want to win so other people lose. And then there's super cool competition, which I believe you were talking about in the early days of the scene that you were a part of, where people inspire you. And you're like, oh, yeah, I want to do that. And in fact, I want to like up the game. I want to take it up a few notches. Healthy, positive competition is what I believe is about making the world better in general. And not just like music or art or business, but like, oh, like, hey, what a great community program they've got over there. I actually kind of want to make an even better version of that. That in its base level is an idea of like, I want to iterate on that and make it stronger, more powerful, have my voice a part of it. That's competition. Competition's nothing wrong. The seed is in competition with the soil around it. I think that's totally cool. Going to not paying attention to people versus like paying attention because people inspire you. I'm a firm believer in hang out with people who are good at the things that you want to be good at.
I mean, you're learning from people.
Totally.
I mean, I feel like, I mean, that competitiveness, you know, it's just like there's a childish version of that, especially if you're talking about art, though. I mean, it's like, you know, what drove all these, you know, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. Obviously, the Rolling Stones are chasing the Beatles for a long time. And off to great effect. You know, it's like they're ripping off the Beatles, and yet I love this because they're doing it. You know, they're doing it. They have something inherently good in what they're doing that just works in this context, and then eventually leads to them just being like, okay, we've covered that base, and now we're going to get into some other sort of thing. And I think, and also I think it's good in any sort of like, you know, again, bringing it back to like a business idea, it's like to understand the conversation that's going on, I think is helpful. Like if you're getting into anything like, oh yeah, you know, I would like to be, you know, open, you know, business X or whatever. It's better. It's good to at least know what the other people are doing. So you have some people that you admire, you know, because then you can create, I mean, a sort of taste, you know what I mean, in something. And then when people are talking about it, like you get the references and you can understand the subtleties within something to like why you decide to include, you know, some sort of cliche or not, or twist it, you know what I mean? Because there are structures that, you know, exist in musical styles, in any sort of product, you know what I mean? Like a sneaker, you know, streetwear styles, you know what I mean? Certain colors are going to come to the fore, and like certain trends are going to play out. And I think if you're I think it behooves you, if you're going to like invest your time and money in like trying to be any sort of entrepreneurial effort, it behooves you to understand the sort of the lay of the land, and also to like have some people that you like love and some people that you just like think are doing it wrong as hell, so that you like can feel that vibe, you know, but yeah, if you, I think anybody initially getting into something is going to be, and there's nothing wrong with it, is like, you're going to like, just try to like imitate the people that you think are cool.
Totally.
But at some point there's going to be someone else that's like kind of on your plane, you know what I mean? And you'll notice what they're doing. They'll notice what you're doing. And like, then it comes down to you know, personality and luck and context and all these kind of things. I remember like, Sick of It All's demo was just so goddamn good. It was just like, our demo is like, sucks compared to this thing, man. And I just, you know, just wanted to get to that point where we could do something that sounded that together. And that drove me to work harder at it and just like figure out how to do it. But it was just never a thing of like, there's nothing to take away from Sick of It All. I love them. I was a fan.
Yeah.
So that's inspiring. I think that's how it always kind of works.
I believe surrounding yourself by successful people, and I don't mean monetarily, but just in whatever pursuit. So someone who's a great parent, like I have, we have like a young daughter. I love being around people who are great parents, who are like really plugged into their kids' lives. It's super inspiring to me. It makes me better at what I do.
Yeah.
I'm not competing with them. I'm like trying to learn from them. I spend a lot of time with like business mentors, people who have been successful. Again, not in like whether or not they've made a ton of money, but like there's a company started in BC, an insurance company, and the CEO is someone that I've like befriended, and they're like big company, but it's a family-owned company, and he's just a cool dude, and he stayed a cool dude, and the company as a outcrop of that is just like a real company. And you might think of insurance and be like, oh, insurance, it's lame, but it's like, well, literally your guitar probably has insurance, like. And I would rather be involved in business that has a heart and has good people involved in it than just like whatever insurance company. Surrounding yourself with good people who are like good at what you want to be good at, I think is like the most important thing to like upping your game constantly.
Absolutely.
Going back to Quicksand. So you make this shift, you're doing a different thing because there's a big difference between Gorilla Biscuits and Quicksand. Yeah. But the songwriting sensibility is there, but it's upped. Very specifically, the bass intro in a mission, from when it starts to when everything kicks in, it screws with my head every single time. Yeah. I don't understand how you wrote that.
Because it's just like in the middle of the phrase.
Yes.
So, but it was not anything that's like I don't. Like we were talking about people, like I listen Quicksand. I always think Jawbox. Like, how did Jawbox figure out these like cool tricks? Or like Fugazi do it too. It's like I wish I could figure out those cool tricks. The cool tricks that come for me are just like they just happen. Like I and maybe that's how it happened for those guys too. It probably is, but I picture them with like all these schematics and like like bulletin boards. Like how do they build this key change or whatever, but yeah, something like that. Just and again, it's playful too because it's although there's a darkness to it, it's like playing off of the brightness of Gorilla Biscuits in a way, but it's also playful because it's not labored over really too much, and it's just like playing with your expectations. I thought that people who liked Gorilla Biscuits might be tripped out by it, but in a good way.
Right.
And if I was wrong, no one would care, so it would be fine.
Totally. So you've got the liberty of putting out this record. Just start with Moondog, going to Quicksand. You've got the liberty of doing it because you've also got a following. People believe in you. You've got a good group of people around you. You've got a record label that believes in you as a good friend. Then you sign to a major. At what point does music become a business for you? And I don't mean the negative connotation, but at what point do you guys have to start treating it like a business?
Yeah, I mean, certainly at that time, because there's and we were still pretty young, but I mean, there's just more money being handled, and so there was taxes and stuff like that were, we were selling T-shirts, but we were selling them out of the van and just like collecting cash and like splitting it up at the end of the night. You know what I mean? There was no accounting, there was no record of it or anything like that. So fortunately in Quicksand we had our drummer Alan was like very on point with that kind of stuff, and I think most bands you get 4 people, it's usually the drummer actually. Someone will get on point with that and recognize it as a business, and then we ended up with a really typical structure at the time. We had a manager, we have an accountant, we have a lawyer, and a booking agent, and all these different people that are involved in moving it forward, having it be more successful, saving money where we can save it, and making sure we don't get in trouble with the government, and that our people that are, at that time it was the record label, our relationships are good because they are the source of our ability to go out on tour, to make records, because we've signed this agreement with them. So that doesn't mean it's all on our terms. It's a relationship as well, to make sure those relationships are good, and that we're plugged into the right people that can help us at a larger spot. So those kind of business things came more into my realm, but it was still at that point, there was a structure of like adults that kind of were able to, and with our guy Alan, who was very much watching those guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In a helpful way.
So something Chris Wren from Bridge 9 said to me that I thought was like really powerful. He didn't take a salary from Bridge 9. I don't even know if he does now. He makes his living off Sully's, off his t-shirt company. And I asked why, like, why don't you go all in on Bridge 9? He said, once the thing that you're passionate about becomes how you make your living, it interferes with the choices that you make.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, I guess at that point I was frustrated with that this system, you have this major label system, and I think we're kind of hitting on this a little bit earlier, but like the major label system had evolved over years and was working for them, but I saw nothing but waste within it because we had made a record for like $2,000 or $1,500, some like crazy, like not $3,000, and had sold 10, 15,000 copies of this thing, and now here we are to make our album, and we can't make it for like less than like $250,000, and like I just don't understand why that is.
Like they wanted you to.
You're contracted. Like the numbers are big in this realm, so you have to spend that money, and it's not like they just give it to you, like, hit us back in like 6 months with the album. It's like, no, they're involved. They're following their investment. And, to my mind, it's like, okay, we spent $2,000 on the last one. That was 3 songs. So let's just say we spend $10,000 on this one. Like tons of other bands in our same position will be doing this year. And then we just keep that money. You can put part of it in something that you want to do, but like, why are we just burning all this money? And so that was kind of crazy to me, but there was reasons for it. And now that major label system is kind of broken down in a lot of ways, there's a certain sadness that I have because like, while like that money would have been so much, I think, better spent in a way, it also kept this whole system going, which means that like people had jobs, so I can see it kind of from both angles, but we had people that were, respected in pros within the business, like navigating that for us. And, I think I really kind of got it more to a business when I started to like fall out of that system, because then it's just like me, like, how am I going to do this? And like, once I kind of saw that, okay, this is not like a fluke, like this is what I do.
Yeah. That's exactly where I want to go.
Yeah.
So Quicksand, you talk to one person that might be like, oh yeah, Quicksand was a cool band, like definitely a cool band, but I loved Gorilla Biscuits, or I've loved what Walter's gone on to do. Other people are like, oh, Quicksand is like the most pivotal band in alternative music, and we'll like take that stand on it. Ups and downs with that band, big time. So I want to talk about the leadership role of like, how do you, when you've got something that is at that inflection point where culture's changing and you're part of that culture change, and it starts wearing down on the people. So from a leadership perspective, what were you doing or what were you learning about keeping a group of people focused and together during that time?
Yeah, I mean, I think I probably could have done better. I mean, I think it was at the time that we were doing this, I was I was in my 20s and kind of dealing with a lot of stuff. And I just kind of took a more personal look at like what was going on and what the stresses of, the stresses of doing it the way that we were doing it, which was very, we were playing like 300 dates a year.
That's crazy.
Which was
I can't
nuts.
believe that.
And, this is all encompassing to my life. And there was just, eventually, I think everyone was just kind of a little mentally worn out. I would have liked to have thought that our structure could have like filled that, some of those, and they, and they did, and people tried in a ways. I think now, like, having had that experience and maybe like, having all kinds of experiences in life to have a better handle on it. I think there's like just communication that probably could have, as a leader, probably would have been better to say, hey guys, let's take a break.
Yeah.
Because we're starting to go after each other on things that aren't really as big of issues that we're making them out to be. And and not seeing really like we're just under a lot of stress, or like this isn't like that our sort of vibe is getting knocked off by the fact that we're just like completely tethered to the road.
Yeah.
And we need to like get away and appreciate like what we're doing a little bit to rather than being like in it so much.
Well, like the retrospectively, like when I look at Gorilla Biscuits, it looks like a bunch of young kids, friends who just kind of grew up together, just growing up together, like playing music, growing up together. Quicksand, I believe you were all like friends when you started the band, right?
I was closest with Tom, the guitar player, and I lived with Alan, but we weren't like super tight. Like we were just, roommates. Hey man, how you doing? Sergio, I didn't really know. I thought it was cool because I think Tom and Alan were really just great musicians. I thought of our crew that I knew, and Sergio was someone new that I hadn't played with, and added like some other kind of like element that played a sort of X factor, like where in saying we were talking about Gorilla Biscuits earlier, like, I was very plugged into how everyone played, and we were very like in the same, had same sense of humor, all that kind of stuff like that. Going into Quicksand, it wasn't like that. Like, even Alan and Tom, they were in the same band. They were like, they already had beef.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When they came into Quicksand. So, so you basically had, me and Tom were pretty tight, and eventually we all became tight, but our chemistry spoke immediately. Totally. You know what I mean? And I think like everyone knew that, like, and I think a lot of times, I mean, I've really mostly experienced with music, but everything, when something just clicks, it clicks.
Well, very specific to that, what's more important? And I know you're going to say both are important, but like, which has more weight? The ability to come together and really click and create something, or the ability to come together and like hang and be good with each other?
I think they're both important aspects, and I think what's more important is like recognizing that, and giving people respect and trust. I think that goes such a long way. I think there's a tendency when something, especially when there's like, when you got geniuses in your band, you know what I mean? Like people that are really have a vision, have like a way that they could steer the thing as well as you could, that you show respect and show trust. I think sometimes there'll be like more like, people try to cut each other down, break each other down a little bit. And by breaking someone else down, like, that can work for a while. Maybe you'll just like sap the fun out of it for that person, and they'll just do it because they need the money, or they don't know what else to do, or blah, 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 blah. But you've just like cut off a source of potential coolness. Before they were annoying to you. You know what I mean? So the way that you get someone to, someone's annoying to you, it has something to do with them, but it also has a lot to do with you, why someone's annoying you. And like, you have a lot more control of how that works. And my experience over time is like, communication, but also just like listening to people, you know what I mean? Listening to people, listening to their ideas, working through their ideas, getting on the same page on those things. Cause like when someone listens to me, like, or anybody, it's like you appreciate that, you feel heard. And if it's not like, if they didn't like really want to pick up what you're laying down, but it's done with respect and with trust, and you have like a track record like that, then you're going to get the best out of people. And they're going to do the same for you. And then you have like a functioning thing. I'm not saying that that's like, I would be down for like a benevolent dictator, like if they were crushing calls, like, you know what I mean? If you're coming with a hot hand and you're doing it, there's no need to be abusive about it, but you know what I mean? But I will bow, I'll do it, like with youth today, it's like, Ray's got a hot hand, you know what I mean? He's the man. So I will always defer to his vision, even if it's like, I don't know, man, but let's roll, and, to working from that point where, Ray was the definitive leader of the band, he was very good at like opening up channels, to like get the best out of me.
How important is humility in the ability? And it's kind of a loaded question because it's obviously important, but like again, for the audience who hasn't been here, uh, Gorilla Biscuits and Youth of Today were contemporaries,
Mm-hmm.
and both like massively impactful bands
Mm-hmm.
for many, many people.
Mm-hmm.
In Gorilla Biscuits, you were clearly like everyone who mattered in the band, but you were like the creative center of the
Mm-hmm.
band. In Youth of Today,
Mm-hmm.
you played a supporting role.
Yeah.
So how did you manage both of those things to be able to like really know how to play the right role in the band and like keep whole while you did it?
Yeah, I think that was a good experience for me, because being in Youth Today, like I felt like Ray's really got a vision, and I trust his vision, but he also opened up a lane for me to like improve upon it. And so he got the best out of me, and that works. I don't think that was a scheme. I think he just saw like that he had good people to work with. But I think like now, I think more of in those kind of terms, you know, like sometimes you could get, I think maybe at a younger age, it'd be like a zero sum, you know what I mean? It's like, my idea is great, your idea sucks, and I will crush you to like eliminate your idea. Like, oh, if it has to be through, you know, whatever kind of, I will do it. You know what I mean? Because you'll ruin it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And even if when you win those battles, you don't really win, because you build resentment.
Yeah.
And I think that'll kind of come and get you eventually, and not only from that person, but your own MO kind of gets clouded by that. So I think that's, some people are just wired, you know, have a better sense of that. Like from the jump, I had to kind of like learn it. And you know, it's also important to be firm when something should be one way or the other, and you do have to make those calls and sacrifices. Like it's important that you're down to do that. But I think if you're working in a group, you need to, you know, engage them and show them respect and give them opportunities, because that's what people want. People are there; they want to give.
So your career continues. Quicksand has puts out 2 LPs.
Mm-hmm.
There's some clear challenges because the band's kind of like seems to be like kind of emerging and disappearing and emerging and disappearing. And you make the shift into rival schools and eventually into more solo work.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about the ability to keep it as a living when you made that shift.
I mean, I think at that point, like when Quicksand broke up, the record label picked up my contract. So I had a solo contract, and
were you the only person in the band?
I was the only one that got picked up. So I had a contract but no band.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool, but kind of weird, because then I had to like create some sort of thing, and I had to kind of fill it into they had already paid for it. So there was no this sort of like, you know, especially in music business, it's like you're trying to get the band, and then you got the band, you're so happy. It's like they already had me.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, you know, send us some songs, let us. We'll get around to it. I mean, it was sort of a weird thing, because like it's cool to be on a major label, and you know, I wasn't like getting ahead, but my bills were paid. I didn't have to like do things, like I didn't have to hustle for money, really.
Yeah.
But it, you know, kind of got shoestringy after a while, and I didn't feel like I was artistically thriving, because I was just sort of on hold, and so I wasn't really connecting with my audience anymore. So I think that was kind of a tough little slog for me, but luckily I merged with rival schools, and with a whole new record company, and you know, because these things get bought out, and it's a major company, so everyone gets fired, and then a new wave of people come in, and they all get fired, and so now I finally like everything's together, and yeah, I mean, I was seeing it as like, I mean, I was kind of getting used to this in a way, like of just maybe rival schools was the first time I started to say like, okay, this is really who I am and what I do. Right. You know, I started to connect it more to my like what I do as a profession.
Yeah. So how did that change your approach to doing it though, both creatively and from a business aspect?
I think more on an artistic side, not on a business side. I think it was maybe after that, because I think I was still just more, it was more about the music and the art for me. Like really seeing it as like these are my creative things, or not, they're not mine solely. Like I'm working with people that are also contributing and doing great stuff and lifting, but like I'm still that force behind it, especially like when it's my contract, blah blah blah. So I started to accept that more. And then I think after Rival Schools, I was like again open to be like um I was still focused on the music actually, but I guess I started to make sense of it more as a business because my next project wasn't on a major label. So then the money started to count more.
Yeah.
And so I had to like look at that a little bit more closely. And I don't think I'm like I'm still not like it's just a larger concern. Like, and I think you just start to get more of a ratio of like, what is my time? Like, is this thing that I'm doing going to benefit me on a creative level? Is it going to bring me around people that I think are interesting or going to lift me? And if it pays, like how is that significant? And is it like sort of a cost benefit analysis? I get a little bit more clued into.
Rival Schools, like cool, very cool chapter in what you did, bringing me to what I think are two super, as your audience, as part of your audience, two super interesting things. I've always considered you to be a person who's always moving forward and expanding your ability to create and bring more stuff into what you do. You have, I think, I say this often about Sick of It All. Sick of It All was one of the first bands who learned how to like really be a hardcore band professionally and still be cool.
Yeah.
I think you're one of the originators of someone who came from the punk scene and stayed cool. Like you didn't become like a wild, like weird caricature of yourself. Like you stayed cool. So you've always been moving forward, and then comes reunions. And I don't know if you had this feeling, but I remember as a kid growing up, I was like, I don't want to see a reunion. Like that sucks. It's like a sellout. It's like, it's bullshit. And when bands would do it, I'd always be like, I'm not going to go. Then one day I found myself getting on an airplane to go to New York to see the first Gorilla Biscuits reunion show that we didn't know there was going to be more. And because my friends for the first step were playing. And Rich Hall got me in. Bless you, Rich Hall. Shout out to Rich. At CBGB's, RIP to RIP to CBGB's. I remember being there and not being conflicted. I remember being there and being like, this is going to be the most important night of all of our lives. And it was this incredible night. Yeah. And then Gorilla Biscuits starts doing reunions and still does reunions. As an artist, as a disruptor, as someone who's always kind of moving forward. Yeah. What was that like for you to do that? And what's the thinking behind it?
I think I probably had the same attitude as you, to be honest. And then, there was the CBGB's was being like, ultimately like they had to close down, but it was like in the name of this thing. Yeah. And, and also just like our guys in our band and just kind of like, what a nice way for us to like, to give each other a hug and hang out with each other. We always see each other and here and there, but we had kind of scattered out a little bit at that point. But yeah, we went and played CB's and like the response was just like, it was just like insane. Like I'd never experienced anything like that. And then there was just a demand for it. And we had this whole tour booked. And actually I tried to pull the plug on it because I was just like, I don't know. I just don't know if I want to like slip down this slope. But it was already too far. And it was actually kind of a dick move for me to try to do that. It was just like my own anxiousness about it. And I think over the years, it's really, I kind of look at it as it's just like a sort of an experience. I think like Siv once said, it's like, I'm here to like feel like I'm 17 again, with all these people and like everybody is a part of it and it's multi-generational. So it's some sort of like experience. It's not even really like, it's not like a band. It's like an experience. That's how I kind of feel it. And it's like a machine and the audience is all a part of it. And it's just like, you know, it ebbs and flows in some ways very, very similar, but it's always different because it's always like different people and there's just different aspects of it. And it's really, it's been beautiful for like my friendships with my friends and so that's been amazing. And, but I would not feel comfortable just doing that. And so I'm still very, you know, like doing Quicksand, we make new music. I've made, you know, I've done like so many records in the last, since I started doing Gorilla Biscuits, I've done like, you know, 6 records at least, you know, of just new material so that I can still feel, you know, that I'm with it, you know what I mean? Because if I'm not doing it, then then you kind of do get a little stuck and, you know, I need to be passionate about something.
Totally. Well, and the reason I'm asking is like, I think culturally, like punk and hardcore, very salty world, seemed to really shift. And it was like, oh, when Youth of Today did that kind of legendary 4 songs at, I think it was like City Gardens, and you played, and it was like, oh my God, that happened.
Yeah.
But then years later, Ray and Porcell and maybe Sammy, but then they got Tim Brooks to play bass because you wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I always thought that was the sickest move, where it was like, no, I'm not going to do it. And was it just because you weren't into reunions at the time?
I don't know what was going on at that time, but I just didn't feel like doing it.
Yeah. So, but I just didn't feel like doing it. Right.
Yeah.
It was like, I just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I remember at the time thinking like, that's the sickest move. Cause I was in that headspace of like, oh, reunions. They're like, somehow I had adopted an idea that reunions were a bad thing.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of a general idea within the scene. And I'm going to pull a sidebar note. I always kind of think of the Sick of It All Born Against radio fight.
Yeah, classic.
Yeah. Because I think it's like such an interesting idea of like, hey, man, like you can, like nobody's wrong in that.
Yeah.
Right? One side is the like ethical, like this is supposed to be different.
Yeah.
The other side is like, it is different. We just want to take it to a different platform.
Yeah.
Nobody's wrong in that.
Yeah, yeah.
So are doing reunion shows wrong? No, not at all. If people want to see it,
unless they're bad,
right? Well, but if people love the band, they want to see it, you know. And like, I'm not even saying if it's done for the right reasons, but if like a band is important and people want to see it, and the band rocks, like kills it, why is that bad? Flip side, well, wait, like punk and hardcore is supposed to be about something, and it creates this like weird murky ground that I think kind of punk and hardcore is maybe dealt with on its own, where it's like, no, it's okay as long as the band is invested in the culture and they're kind of part of the culture.
Yeah.
And something that I think like really stands out around Gorilla Biscuits and still doing it and being able to do reunions that are like well respected and well loved is that you are all seemingly invested in the culture still.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's amazing. Like, you know, here we are, we're grown adult guys, and we, you know, you live in a different part of the country and I live in a different part of the country, and yet here we are doing this kind of thing. Like that happens on so many different levels. Like it's a big cultural thing for my you know, people my age, but it's also like expanded and grown over generations and generations. And some of them I'm more checked in than I am with other ones. I'm kind of a bit current these days because I was doing a show about hardcore for Vans over the you know, kind of pandemic era, but this like this sort of like you know, some people call it a family. I think it's like a sort of like a society, you know what I mean, of people that have these sort of certain shared values and other ones that are kind of like, you know, takes all kinds, but you know, a love of music, a love of culture. I think generally like, you know, people that want like, you know, fairness and, you know, people are, I think, are generally on the side of good.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask you a tough question. If you want to pass on it, it's totally cool. When Gorilla Biscuits came back, I remember when you started playing shows, I was watching you guys, and I heard just someone beside me was like, man, I don't remember them being this good when I saw them when I was a
we
kid.
got way better.
Right. You became like, you were all more experienced musicians.
Yeah. And just, we were not, I look at pictures of us or videos of us at that time, and I think we were a bit uptight, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I think this is like absolutely like we're so goddamn lucky that we made this thing with the harmonica on it and all that kind of stuff, and that people keep rediscovering it. Like, it is cuckoo.
Yeah.
And so like we're just really happy to be doing that. And like honestly, like we're good musicians. Like not like I mean, I don't know if we travel in all circles as musicians, but like really fun people to play with, like musically.
Yeah.
And we just really enjoy the hell out of it. And we appreciate like, you know, like Civ can just like really engage with the audience in such a cool way. And that the, you know, we didn't really, I think when we played, we didn't really have, I always feel like I'm a little stiff and just trying to like project some sort of like thing. Whereas now we're just very much more comfortable, I think, with who we are. And I think that energy is really, I think people plug into it and they're also, the audience is telling us in a way, like we're here to have fun. Like we're in a good damn mood. And so like that just becomes the mode.
And so you went right to what I want to talk about is, and this is tough. So if you want to push on it, I'm totally cool with it. I saw you with Judge at like some like tattoo convention in California. I flew down to go see it. And it was crazy. It was like a crazy show, like a massive show. I think Travis Barker was like his tattoo convention. Yeah. So we're talking like real deal big show. Yeah. Gorilla Biscuits is a incredible live band at this point. You're like, good. The crowd is having the most fun. And at what point, so like young me is in my head where I'm like, I could not imagine at like 16 or 17, I'd be sitting here in California watching this crazy, amazing thing happening. Yeah. And this is like some crazy, huge tattoo festival. There's real money being made. Yeah. At what point is the meeting ground or the crossroads between doing art and doing art just because you have fun and you want to do it, and making money? So like, how do you do that in a way? Because you are doing something that could go on forever. Gorilla Biscuits, until like the wheels fall off, whatever it is. But Gorilla Biscuits could keep playing shows forever, and I think we all want Gorilla Biscuits to keep playing shows together. How do you manage that crossroads, or is that even something you even think about?
Well, I mean, everybody's got their lives. Like, you know, there's kids, there's, you know, other jobs and stuff like that that people are doing. So in order to like organize a show for us to play it, like we have to have like, it has to work out. We have to be interested in it. The money has to be there for it to make sense. So it's kind of easier to like make these choices in a lot of ways because we're okay saying no. Yeah. Like if we say no to something, to be honest, that just means somewhere down the road, there's just more people will be more up for it. Yeah. If it's the worst thing we could do is say yes to too much stuff, because then you're like kind of saturating it. Yeah. And like I think what we do is super special because we kind of keep it to what it is. You know, we're playing these songs with you know, absolute, we're in it 100%. Like my hands are just moving. I don't know what's going on. Yeah. And that's a very special experience. And so like we pick our spots, you know, and I think by doing that, I think we've been pretty good to not just like burn out on it or burn other people out on it, you know, and I can only say that because, you know, we get contacted for things.
Of course.
Yeah.
That kind of picking your spots though, the decision to kind of stay more of like, and I'll use this term and I don't mean it in an insulting way, but being more of like a legacy act. You did one single and the single at the time didn't seem like it was very well received. Yeah. And you didn't do anything more. Was that based on, you know what, let's just keep it a legacy act because we just want to keep it simple? Yeah. Or was it, we're scared to screw up our legacy?
I think it was a combination of things. Like, I think we just didn't do it. There's a couple things we just missed cues, I think, on that single. I think the song's really good. The songs are really good, but I think I think there's a combination of things. People own the band, actually. Totally. And I think that's the thing. So it's like, I wanted to make something new, maybe to assuage my guilt of like doing a reunion, to like be contemporary in some sort of way. But I think it was maybe just trying too hard in a way. And it should have been more considered and I mean, whatever. I think it's good in the fact that it basically the audience said, don't make any new songs, dude. Take the pressure's off. Yeah. So I think with Gorilla Biscuits, it's very comfortable to just like, this is an experience. This is like, you know, it's in a way it's theater. Like but you're in the show too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's a very special, and it's like I said, it's a multi-generational connection that I think, you know, we weren't like in the first wave, we weren't like Minor Threat level, but we were pretty early on, so shockingly, because I thought the whole thing was over by the time we got into it. I thought we were very late. So I think that's really the thing, and to create new material when you don't need to. I don't really feel, or we don't feel, the need to really like push that. But I think that's unique to Gorilla Biscuits. Whereas in Quicksand, I wouldn't feel like, we felt very, very strongly that we had to, like, if we're going to keep doing it, because it's often would be, you know, we're talking about reunions. It's often to diminishing returns because everyone's really excited to see the band, and then they've seen them, and then they come back 6 months later. It's like, oh yeah, cool, I'll go to see them. And then the third time they come, you're sort of like, I'm kind of busy that night. And I think that's just the way that these things are. I think Quicksand really felt immediately like we wanted to be a creative entity, for us to feel like we can play those songs and feel cool about it. And to build it into the context of like who we are now. And I think with Gorilla Biscuits, we are who we are now in how we are on stage, really. And how we handle the whole thing.
Well, it's like Gorilla Biscuits were truly Gorilla Biscuits when you're young and you put out those records. And then when you came back to it, you found out who you were again, now, who you are now, and you've become comfortable with being that. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's just all our personalities and our chemistry is just like, it's just part of the experience. And I don't really feel like we need to make new material. And also it's like, it's almost really how I felt about it at the time when the band broke up. It's like, I just really, on this theme, I can't really hold my ground any harder than Hold Your Ground. You know what I mean? I think the Civ record was like a bit of some like sort of afterburner vibe of like picking up that kind of character and that kind of like style again. But I think Gorilla Biscuits shouldn't evolve. Really.
We only want the evolution of it to be on the t-shirt, right?
Yeah, like it doesn't go, we don't want any evolution on Gorilla Biscuits. And I think that was the thing, you know what I mean? Like, and I think that's kind of the blueprint for a lot of hardcore. Like, it really, people, I think, I hate to say it, don't want people to evolve very much. You know,
it's a weird culture, because you can have people like, let's say, Title Fight, how they came up and where they've gone, and then like Glitterer and all those things. It's like there's a hardcore audience. I still think like I can look at Glitterer and be like, oh, that's hardcore. It's not like hardcore, but it comes from that perspective. The willingness to innovate and stay true to yourself. If you're good at what you do, people will follow you. I want to touch one more thing on Gorilla Biscuits though. Or sorry, actually, it's not Gorilla Biscuits themed, because I want to finish off with Quicksand and where you are today. So you talked a lot about knowing your audience, and like with Gorilla Biscuits, you know your audience, you know what your audience wants. And from like a commerce point of view, it's like everyone's satisfied. I want to go to a Gorilla Biscuit show. I do want to hear First Failure, but I want to hear that song.
We play that one every once. I guess sometimes we don't.
I've never seen you play it.
I think we switch between First Failure and there's another one that's kind of exactly like it, and we just like flip between. I think it's some people think
Competition.
Right. Anyway, there's two of the songs on Start Today that we are just like, they're too damn similar. We play one or the other.
First Failure, I remember as a little kid.
That
like whatever it was, whatever thing I had, and coming home and just being so heartbroken and looking at those lyrics and being like, I gotta, like, this is just a failure. It's gonna be okay. I've never seen you guys play it, but
we do play it. We have played it. It's a fact. I know it. If you've been let, like I know I've seen Arthur on stage doing that. It's been done.
Okay. You know your audience, and this goes back to early in the interview, like being someone who's doing something, gotta know your audience. Something I find interesting about your story is it's like we've got a storied career. You've done some considerably and continually cool things. You also aren't afraid to play in a small band.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just, you know, when you're doing Gorilla Biscuits, like you're just setting up a sort of a tent for everyone to come in. Like it's not really like, of course, like we're playing a pivotal role, but we're just like putting the name on the top of the thing that's going to happen, and everybody's participating. Like the reason you're going is not just to see First Failure. It's because you're going to see that person, you're going to see that person. And you know, that's the experience. For me as a musician, like I have stuff that I want to do, that I want to say, you know what I mean? Not that it's so important, but it's just like, that's what I do. So I have to like, I can't just like park up a big tent on that. I still have to like break things in. I still have to push these ideas and try to manifest them as best I can.
Well, Dead Heavens and Vanishing Life, two bands that are super cool and had like a level of recognition, but certainly didn't go on to do the things that you've done with the other bands. But you went out and like toured with these bands and did stuff with these bands. So going back to the idea of being humble, you're someone who's been able to do some pretty wild things, but also late in your career, you'll go play a record store that has like 30 people in it.
Yeah. I mean, I think I just don't see, I can play both roles in a way, but it doesn't like, I guess I have like a level of like fame and success that I'm very comfortable with in that regard, because like some people couldn't do that, and even if they wanted to. So, you know, for me, like those kind of things will come up, and, you know, I get, if I'm like anxious about it or something like that, then that becomes the thing that I have to put that's my work right there. Like if you know, I'm playing a festival solo acoustic in England next week, and I haven't played solo acoustic in a bit, so I'm a little like not 100% confident about it. So like I've been starting to practice, but this week's going to be like, I got to practice. I got to go do this, and I got to do my absolute best. And so that's going to occupy me. And I'm at the end of this experience, like, although I'm going to be like concerned that it's not going to go as well as it could, I'm in the back of my mind, I know that's going to go well. And then I will have done something that I'm like, was anxious about, or, and everything that I learn, everything that I do to like make sure that that show goes well is going to serve me for the next bit of time, you know? So I'm just like building my, you know, as a person, you know, building like my personhood, but as an artist, I'm engaging like my own, you know, my talents, my blocks, all those kind of things.
Was there ever a point where you had to wrestle with any parts of your personality to be able to play to a small show, or to play in a band that's just kind of getting off the ground, or to not be the main person in the band? Was there any, because you said like there's work, like there's never any wrestling with your ego you had to do?
No, I mean, I think maybe more like when you're in the wrong place, you know what I mean? If I'm feeling like, I don't feel like I'm in Dead Heavens. I remember playing like record stores and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, I guess that's not glamorous, you know what I mean? But I don't know. Everyone's there and is excited for like what I'm doing. And like what I'm doing is not like, they're taking a leap over to like something that they don't really know about, you know, because it's not like an established thing. Like, for example, like Dead Heavens or Vanishing Life, like those records are awesome. You know what I mean? Like, and the bands and the people that I work with are really, really good. And those experiences like made me, not only engaged me through those times, but like have like launched me to a different place and have made it more rich and interesting for me. So even those experiences where I'm like hanging out with people on a more intimate level, like, yeah, I dig that. Like, I'm not like seeking that out all the time, but like, it's like, I don't know. It'd be pretty weird at this stage of the game to be like, no. I mean, there's certain things I'll say no because I don't want to do it. It doesn't seem fun. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like I'm jonesing to like play every record store in America. I'm not. But if it makes sense and I do it to the level of that I'm into doing it, then, you know, I'm not trying to sell anybody on that lifestyle. But yeah, I don't find that like, you know, it doesn't bum me out or anything like that. You know, and maybe there's some people that, would feel that way and not really shouldn't.
Yeah.
You know?
All right, let's go back to Quicksand now. Quicksand has now put out what I think are phenomenal new records. You got a new one that just came out.
Mm-hmm.
It was this year, right?
This past year, yeah.
You already spoke to like the need and the desire to keep creating. So not just to be a legacy band, to be actually like a contemporary band.
Yeah.
Now that you're back, you're doing tours. I know you just announced a tour coming up. What is noticeably different about the music, the business of music, that wasn't, or what's noticeably different from when Quicksand was initially a band and there was that big major label boom in the alternative world?
Yeah, I think when we're talking about business and becoming aware of it, it's like for sure like how we run our thing now, because similar to Gorilla Biscuits, like we have like lives and different things that we're doing, so we have to like coordinate like what are the things that we're going to pick and go do. And whereas in the past on the major labels, you're part of this sort of like game of like, you're coordinating with their promotional teams and stuff like that. And that still exists. Like, but the partnership with Epitaph is way more of a partnership. And they're in the music that they're on their record label for the very similar reasons that we are doing what we're doing. It's like there's no like people like riding the bench, you know what I mean? Like everybody, it's all hands on deck all the time. So, we pick our spots. We when we're going to do something, we get into it and try to like max it out creatively. And, we look for ways that we could save money on doing it. We're ethical. We pay people that work for us like well, and that we care about, the kind of things that we should care about, I think, and we're thinking about our fans and like what is our relationship to them, and like also like how would we attract new fans, because like in a sense like we're a contemporary band, but we also just kind of have this like built-in fan base, but that's an awesome thing to have, but still you need to introduce yourself to new music. So like we prioritize like how do we get to do that, but do it in a way that's like doesn't seem like too thirsty or just like is a bad use of resources.
Yeah. So that idea about being thirsty, and again for the uninitiated, thirsty meaning desperate, being an older band but being contemporary and trying to build that relationship. How does someone do that? Because, being an older guy that plays in like a straight edge band, like a young kid shouldn't want to take my band out for tour. Their band that's popular right now and is like the big band. It would be almost not weird, but if they hit me up and are like, oh, I want to take Change out for a tour, I'd be like, oh, that's so nice. But don't you have like friends your own age?
Yeah.
Building a relationship with a new audience, and especially when you're older, there's a lot of investment in playing a band. It's a tricky and interesting idea, but you're plugged into your audience very, very well. So how do you go about that as Quicksand?
Well, I definitely have people that I think are, have their sort of like vantage points that, that I go to for advice and get their opinions on certain things to kind of like work with my gut and like sort of like bounce off of things like that, the kind of like decisions like, do we do this tour? Do we not do this? Like, how do we, but I think the very basic level is like our relationship between the three of us to the music that we're creating. Because like, if we're really backing this music, I mean, there's nothing worse than like, I mean, luckily I've not really been in this situation, but like if you're playing bullshit music and then you got to go promote it every night, it's just got to be a nightmare.
Oh my God.
And I'm not saying, I'm not like being snooty about it. Like sometimes that's the way it is. You know what I mean? And then it's your challenge to get through that shitty time and make some better music. But for us, it's like, we're really like working on this music. So like, if it's the greatest music to other people or not, to us, it like represents like our best effort. So like it behooves us to like take care of everything that we do. And it also behooves us to, we want people to hear it and be a part of this like sort of, I mean, thing with bands and, any sort of product, I suppose. Not any sort of product, but you're helping to create stories. You know what I mean? There's like ancillary like social reactions and things that happen because you're putting forward this thing. You know what I mean? Like you're talking about First Failure or whatever, like your experience with that song is like something that spins off in your life, but it's like it's coming because there's these, our relationships with the songs are really good.
Yeah. All right, so we're heading towards the end of the interview. I got a few questions I want to ask. The first is, and again, this might be a little sensitive. I want to talk about how to get the best result with a group of people. So going back, like when Wally Sings the Hits, that bootleg CD came out, I was like, oh, what? I can't believe he had to track the vocals.
Yeah.
Later on to go on my bands where I've had to, like, unless I'm the singer, I track vocals for people all the time. And I went on to do that many times. It's just like, that's an understood part of it. And if you're in music, you'll understand that maybe the songwriter and the lyricist are actually the same thing, and the singer comes in and learns it. So as a leader in a band, or kind of a creative center of a band, how have you gone about getting the best takes from people and making sure that what they're bringing in isn't phoned in, and actually like pushing people past their breaking point?
I mean, I do that more as a producer, and I definitely got my experience through working with Don and Siv in GB, like that, how the conversation, how you like get the best out of each other and keep it fun, because it's definitely, singing is very like 3D. Like playing guitar, like I can do guitar tracks and be, of course, frustrated with my hands not doing what I want it to do.
Yeah.
But singing is like way harder, because there's just so much to it, like the feeling is such an important thing, not only the execution, but the temper of your voice, all these kind of things come into play. I think, having taste is a thing, and being able to communicate, like, when I'm working with someone else, like, what is it that I like about this person? Like, what is the qualities that they have that to me gets me excited?
Yeah.
And, I can remember with Siv early on, his voice cracked, and, he didn't do that on purpose, but we were like, that rules. So like, we kind of like wanted that to happen here and there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that's a thing that builds character. It's like finding out what you like in the other person helps you to draw out those kind of qualities. And like, and I think just being a good communicator is, to where that person doesn't feel beat by it. You know what I mean? Because I've been in that situation too. Like someone is hearing something from me that maybe I don't even like about, they're like trying to get something out of me, a part of me that I'm not willing to give up.
Yeah.
Or I don't think that's a cool part of me. You know what I mean? So I'm resisting that sort of thing, and rightly or wrongly. And so that person needs to kind of get a sense of that, and come at it from a different angle, try to beat me, or, you know what I mean? It's just like that's, I think that's how people work with each other. And so it's like, and sometimes you just leave it alone and go to something else, maybe come back to it another time, and just getting, it's just kind of like people skills, I suppose.
These are therapist skills.
Yeah,
and
a little bit.
I don't know if you know this about me. I'm a therapist by training, and then by trade, I'm a coach, a business coach. So what you just talked about is how I work with leaders.
Yeah.
And one of the things, because I think of like, someone doesn't have to be the best singer to be the best singer for that band.
Oh, yeah.
And if I think of like, someone doesn't have to be a natural singer. So I think of Siv, I think it's like, there's no one else in the world that could be the front person of that band.
Yeah.
That's the front person of that band. Because singing is super complex, as you said, but then singing live is different. How you engage with the crowd, how you bring people along. The guy is like an iconic singer, but might not have been the most natural singer, and had to get coached and mentored and led along the way until he kind of found his feet.
Yeah.
Getting the best results from people isn't about finding the person who's the most talented. It's the person who's most willing to play in the playground and push themselves and learn. And of course, there has to be some talent there. Yeah. But their willingness to allow that to be like molded until they can mold it themselves. And I think that like that to me is stands out to me as probably why you've gone on to be able to be really strong in production and help people, because of some of those lessons you learned early on.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on the other side of it, and like where there's going to be parts of yourself that you don't really want to come out. You know what I mean? That you don't necessarily want to share with people. And there's things that people are trying to project upon you. You know what I mean? That it's just like they're barking up the wrong tree. Like, that's not me, babe. You know what I mean? And
I hope you've said that to someone one time.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's not me, babe.
Yeah. Yeah, because sometimes, and that's a point of a block, which you want to avoid. You know what I mean? You don't want to, when you feel a block coming, you got to like sense that and kind of get away from it. Or maybe sometimes you have to like respect somebody's like boundaries.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's definitely a level of like, pushing someone to be their best to like, break, not respecting people's boundaries. And I think people are more likely to take those risks when you build up trust with them. You know what I mean? And sometimes that trust is inherent, like in the fact that you've hired someone to come in and do something because you admire their work, so you trust them already. So you can skip a bunch of steps, but that'll break down once you get at some point, usually.
Yeah. All right. Last 3 questions for you, man. The first is, well, actually, let's start with easy because they're going to get way harder after that.
Wow.
All right. So the first is anything that you want to hype, point people to, where can people find you? Anything that you want to share from that perspective?
I'm pretty focused on Quicksand right now. So like anything related to Quicksand, this is a cool band that you should check out. It's guitar, music, and we do some kind of interesting musical passages and cool rhythms. And I think anybody could kind of like it.
Yeah, I would agree. I think anyone who likes guitar music, and I like that term you just used, would definitely like Quicksand. All right, second question. This is hard, but it's not that hard because you've already talked about it. Why was Captain Kirk such a great leader? Captain
Kirk I think he knows how, he's charismatic, so he's easy to follow. He's fun to be around. He has faults that are, you can see, and he's not afraid to like make fun of himself. I think he's courageous. He's willing to take a hit for the team. He's willing to make tough decisions. I think the strongest quality that he has is how he befriends his crew and utilizes them, not to his own, because his job is to like make sure everything kind of works out at the end and everybody's alive, and he trusts his people and he gives them the autonomy to like do their jobs. They're very, specialized, yet there's an intimacy there. They're not like, you could have specialized departments, but there's not a connecting factor. But he is like, I'm sure he could go out to dinner with Scotty, have a great time. He could go out with Spock like anytime by themselves. They probably have their own jokes and, all of those guys. And I think he's, definitely like my career in music, I think was inspired by Star Trek. And I'm down to play. I think sometimes I can be Kirk, sometimes I'm Spock. I can do Sulu. Like I can appreciate all those different roles. I can wear a red shirt. That's not my favorite. It's a dangerous shirt to wear. But I can wear a blue or a mustard.
Okay, good. All right, man. Last question, and it might be easy for you. It might be tough. So I could ask you a lot of music questions. I'm going to ask you a business question. What were the 3 biggest mentors in your life learning how to like do the business of being a musician?
The first one that popped into my mind was Capo, although his business style is pretty cuckoo, but I think he probably is. I'm sure he's a lot better at it now, but just that he was, if something needed to happen, he would make it happen. Like he would find the right people, get them, put them together, shake them around, and then the thing would happen. So I think that like idea of like, of taking the initiative and seeing that sometimes you just got to like call this person, call that person, and it's done. Like, why are you freaking out? I think that he's really, really great at that. Other business people, I guess I've admired the drummers in my bands. Like generally the drummers are always the dudes that like follow the money,
Oh.
and kind of look after that. And you know, there's people that have been in my bands that are businessmen. Like Siv's a businessman. He's been doing a great business for like 20 years, and you know, I know there's a lot. You know, when you have an actual store, an entrepreneur, that there's all kinds of crap that can happen. So those are kind of like the people that have influenced me, or you know, I guess on a sort of yeah, my kind of like personal business, I've just kind of evolved into just taking more care of it. I think it's certainly probably becoming apparent, this being where like money counts more.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Making sure shit's together.
Yeah. Hell yeah. All right. Well, listen, Walter, this has been an awesome conversation. Anything you want to add in before we close off?
I hope this is our conversation is of help, service, or whatever. Some business. It's interesting to talk about things from this angle.
Hell yeah, man.
Thanks for having me.
Dude, absolutely. It's a huge pleasure. So everyone, I'll see you in the outro. And Spencer, drop the beat.